right, it is 2 o'clock, so we're going to get started. My name is Shelley Reed. I am the manager of the Legal Services National Technology Assistance Project, and we are happy to host this community meeting for data specialists and those who work with data within the legal aid and nonprofit community. And I'm going to turn it over to Susan Vincent today, who is going to be speaking with us along with Nate Vogel, I believe, about QGIS and GeoJSON. Hopefully I said that correctly, but they'll correct me as they come on. And welcome, and we hope you enjoy.
Well, thank you, Shelley. Welcome, everyone. We know that mapping and GIS in general has been of interest to this group, and so we're glad to be able to share with you. But I'm going to hand it over to Nate and Travis to kind of do the initial portion of this and talk about QGIS and GeoJSON. We have put together some resources for all of you. They are in the resources kind of library that we have put together. That is accessible from the legal aid data visualization site, which I've just linked there in the chat, or you can go directly to the Google Drive via that second link, and you should see a GIS tools overview document there, and that will go over some of what we're talking about here today, and we'll hopefully continue to edit that with some of what we talk about here today. But with that, Nate, do you and Travis want to do some introductions and kick us off?
Sure. So I'll say hi. I'm Nate Vogel, Community Legal Services of Philadelphia. And Travis and I are the Digital Innovation Lab at CLS. And this is and I am Travis actually joined us from a geospatial analysis organization. So he's the expert here. Susan and Travis know tons about this stuff. I'm really excited to learn from both of them about what they're going to talk about. So that's it for me. Thanks.
And hi, I'm Travis Southard. I am a developer and data analyst with the Digital Innovation Lab at Community Legal Services. And yeah, I'm excited to show you guys some of the tools that I'm familiar with. Some are a little bit more in depth. Some are just like plug and play, which is wonderful. Yeah. Oh yeah. Soon to be logo. It needs to be actually made into any digital thing, but like it's a thing. We're like working on stuff, so it's hard to work on logos when you're making cool projects. Great. So I prepared a short talk. Should I jump in? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Order of operations here. Do this, and then I'm gonna hit this. Great. Okay. So I've already introduced myself. This is just like a very quick overview of like what I do when I'm setting up any new mapping project. This was largely the flow that I was taught in different types of projects, but also I used to work at Azavia, which was a geospatial firm that made geospatial web applications. So like just like a website with a map on it, which was always very exciting. So anytime I'm starting a new project, this is at CLS, this is typically an attorney coming to me and saying, hey, I'd like to make a point about something with housing, or to analyze like our power shutoffs happening in places where people are more vulnerable to heat exposure, and many other things. And sometimes it's something that like Nate and I come up with where we're talking about something, we're like, oh, that would make a great project. So I typically try to follow these like very quick steps. I feel like I spend more time in planning than actually building the thing, which I think is true for many types of projects. But like figuring out like what is the scope, what's our data, collecting that data. This actually typically is one of the harder parts of doing this, is like getting the thing that we actually need, because we think we have it somewhere or have access to it somewhere, and sometimes it's not true. some early visualizing and prototyping. That's probably what I'll spend the most time kind of talking about very quickly. And then figuring out like how to deliver it, like what does it need to be? And does it need to be interactive? Does it need to just be a map that you see? Like, it can be an image? So really important questions to start with when you're like determining like scope and stuff. The first one is, who will be seeing this and what do you want them to do with what they've seen? This is true of a lot of different kinds of projects, not just maps, not just justice projects. And then also like, what data do I have now and what do I still need? And the answers to these different questions will really determine like, what do you need to build? What are you overbuilding? What aren't you going to need? Which is very important for us. I get a lot of data from public sources. We're in Philadelphia and most of our clients are in Philadelphia. And so we have a great resource called Open Data Philly. We also have access to some other local public data, some Pennsylvania like level data. And the US Census is a wonderful place to get data, but it's really hard to work with. I like, every time I go in there where I'm looking for something kind of specific, they have a lot of things to interact with. It's very powerful, but it's very tough. We get a lot of our data from legal server as well. Like we will, about our own clients in cases, of course, and we have to anonymize that data and make sure that we're respecting privacy and confidentiality. But that is a place where we get it. And sometimes the attorneys and paralegals will just like give us data. Like that is the project. It's like, here's this data. Can you tell me like about it? And can you make it look pretty? So sometimes this is data from discovery, from active lawsuits. Sometimes this is data acquired from purchases where like, it's just like, it's behind a paywall and we have to pay for it. So when I have gathered my data, what I like to do is just quickly visualize stuff, like just literally just get it onto some sort of a screen so that I can see it and that it's so that I know that the data is what I think it's going to be, and also to check projections and to make sure that like things like I know the order of like latitude, longitude, because that changes from projection to projection, but it also changes from program to program. So it's always a thing. I tend to use geojson.io. This is a really great place to check data, but it's also a good place to create data if you don't have data, but you know, as a person, like, oh, I want to like draw a square, I want to draw a polygon or a certain number of points where I know where they are, but like we don't have written down. This can be a really great way to quickly make that data. It's actually very fun to work with. Like this is it just kind of running. And so you can add a point. You can draw lines in different places. And then you have to come back up here to set that. You can also draw polygons, but only solid polygons. I don't think you can draw anything with like holes in it, so no donuts or anything like that. It allows you to draw squares, circles, etc. But also, if you're trying to just quickly make something to make a point, you can decorate these a little bit and change like the actual look of these. Which like, that's very fun. So like, these are like really quick ways to kind of get through this. You can add data. So you can say like, oh, this is a point and like its name is like good place, right? And you can save this and it actually shows up in this data. So you can copy and paste this and run with it. You can also generate it as a table. But I don't think you can oh yeah, you can export it as a CSV. I was like, I remember doing that before. Like, so you get like all these like different things that you can export stuff as. It's like one of the reasons why I've really liked working with this. Although apparently I haven't used that part in a while. It has some like ability to work through some stuff, but it's not super powerful. We're gonna jump back in here. So I tend to prototyping in like that geojson.io website, but once I am moving to QGIS or to a web map, I tend to prefer CSV data. It's a little bit smaller and a little bit easier for most programs to work with because it's just a table. But either work. Almost any geospatial thing is going to accept CSV and well-known text and GeoJSON, which is great. So one of the things is I made the distinction a second ago between like web and building something in QGIS. If the user needs to interact with this, right? If you want them to be able to zoom in or to be able to manipulate anything or click on like a point so that you can see, oh, its name is good place, etc. Then a web map is a great way to do it. I have built them in Mapbox and in Leaflet. Both are great for the web. When I am going to choose Mapbox, I actually don't choose Mapbox. I choose Map Libre, which is it was a fork of version 1 of Mapbox, so that you could have updates still to the version 1, but retain the open source license and the ability to use it for free forever. This Mapbox version 2 is closed source, it is proprietary, and I think you need a subscription for it. So what's great is you can use this with like a database. You can use these with just like flat files. You can have a .geojson file that like it reads from. One tip that I will give anytime you're building a web map is to set limits. Set like how far you want people to be able to zoom in, how far you want people to be able to zoom out, and how far they can move away from your points. Because otherwise, you might have a map of Philadelphia and you have someone just like scrolling like way over to like Russia, and like you don't have any data there. It's not very useful. So especially if you are paying for a tile service, like if you're getting it like that nitty-gritty of thing, if you're paying for a tile service, you want to set those limits to ensure that you're not getting too many tiles, like loading so many tiles that it like raises your bill. The other way that I do this is I will build stuff in QGIS. This is an open source free thing. Anyone can download it. You can get started right away. It's one of those things kind of like Photoshop or like programs like that where there's too many buttons and you really only need like 6. So finding those 6, there's a lot of really great tutorials online. There's a really fantastic community and lots of documentation about it. So it's very easy to make stuff with that. I actually made this map recently. I can't really talk about like the stuff because it's still kind of in a draft process, but like I was able to take 2 data sets and combine them to create this and do some math to get the very pretty colors that you see there. And QGIS is like incredibly powerful. It also has like really great print options, which is why I use it for anything like if we're putting this out to like a report, like a white paper, or if it's something that like our attorneys are putting together for lobbying or for a case, etc. Like this is great because you can just like export an image or a PDF and hand it out. You can also add charts. This is something that I'm learning about a little bit right now that I haven't played with too much, but QGIS has the ability to do that. And also like type of map, right? Like this is a chloropleth map. It's like lots of little borders with like a single color in each little polygon. as opposed to like a raster map, which is like that where you see like a grid of pixels and you get these like different values everywhere. And like a point, just like points on a map, kind of like what I was drawing a second ago, just like having a bunch of points. And then you have to build it. Like once you've like done all of this planning, you have to like then build it. But if you've done all of that planning ahead of time, building it should go very quickly because you've made a good plan, and like it makes it easier to get through that. And quickly prototyping, and like if you're working with any sort of like client, like my client, like all of my clients are the lawyers and paralegals here at CLS. So being able to interact with them and show them those prototypes on like GeoJSON or sending them quick images gets us closer to what they want built and like what it is that they want to show, which is great. I've talked very quickly, but I'm wondering if anyone has any questions.
Hey, Travis. Quick question. You know, I worked on this resource map for our team, and we just went into the Google Make Your Own Map program, whatever it is, and it seemed like it was relatively easy. Do you see any, I guess, limitations to using a service like that, or how does, you know, kind of starting off in GeoJSON, or yeah, the GeoJSON, and then going to a Google map, how have you had that experience? What does that look like? Would you recommend something over another?
The Google Map setup that you're talking about is also, that's a great place to start. I think its biggest limits are you tend to have to like hand draw everything. Like you can import some data, but it's pretty limited that way. And also, I'm very picky about styles and like being able to actually like style the map. And Google's setup for that is pretty limited. Like I want to get picky about like gradients and how I'm drawing polygons and all of that. And I think that I tend to lean towards those. One of the things as well, because we're in legal aid, is that I don't trust Google with data. So like I wouldn't want to like upload stuff to their services, especially if it contains any sort of classified is not the word, confidential data at all.
Fair enough. Well, thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Where in Philly are you guys?
Our offices, we have a couple of offices. We have one in Center City, right by City Hall. And we have one at Broad and Erie in North Philadelphia, where we have many, many clients. And we also have another office kind of a little closer to the Art Museum, if anyone's familiar with that, where apparently there's a lot of law offices.
I grew up in Bucks County, so
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
I haven't been back east in like forever, but yeah, okay, it's pretty cool.
Very cool. Well, thanks y'all for listening. You're welcome to send me questions. My email's on here, and I'm always happy to talk about maps.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Travis. Nate, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add. If not, I'll jump in and show some stuff from resources that we all put together, and then some legal server and Power BI mapping as well. So these are the resources that we shared in that chat. Again, I'll go ahead and put that link again, just in case a couple of y'all joined after. I'll put that in after I finish sharing. But so we put some basics on what is GIS. So if any of the kind of terminology that Travis was using is new to you, some of that is in here. I do encourage you to not be intimidated by working with mapping tools. There's a lot of kind of terms of art. There's a lot of details. There's a lot of stuff you can get tripped up on, but there's also a lot of support and a lot of help. And there's a lot of tools that can make this easier. And so I'm going to talk about a few of those that are common to a lot of folks in this community, which is Legal Server and Power BI. And so I know a lot of folks also use ArcGIS. That's something that has a lot of resource and community around it, but it is also a paid tool. So resources here for your reference. And so some of the other resources in that folder that I'll again just go ahead and put in the chat are some legal server example reports, and I put them with and without GIS, depending on whether you have that module enabled on your site. So the GIS module is one that will convert address data, which is not technically a location, into latitude and longitude, which is a location, a geospatial location. And then it'll also identify which boundaries that location is in. So census tract is one of those locations that is common, congressional districts, et cetera. These are all test cases, so don't worry, I'm not showing you our real client data. The report that is in the sample report that is in the folder is not filtered down, but this one is filtered down just to our test data. And so I've put a map in here that Legal Server has the capability to create for you. You can see that it's really limited. If I go into the kind of editor version of this report, you'll see I don't have a ton of editing features in here at all. You can do some things, but my options in here are pretty limited. So I can say what type of map it is, what is the value source, so the case count, but it doesn't make a ton of sense, right? So case count goes to percentages over here, which doesn't, like, it tells me where most of our cases are, but it doesn't tell me how many. I can't change it from being a percentage to a number. And so I don't use the mapping in Legal Server much at all, other than to, again, kind of do the geocoding for me, which is, again, to convert that address into latitude and longitude. I've also put on there some API templates for you and a CSV output. I use a CSV output option in Legal Server all the time because it gets rid of that header that Legal Server puts in the Excel version and just gives you the data. And so I've actually downloaded this data and I'm just going to pull it into Power BI really quickly to show you what you can do just kind of out of the box with Power BI. We do have a guest speaker that's going to show you a little bit more of what you can do with data. And so I'll be handing it off to him in just a moment. But just to show you kind of really quickly kind of what you can do with just some out of the box tools. Again, kind of going back to what Travis was talking about, one of the purposes for your mapping may just be data exploration. You may want to see what you have before you're actually trying to present it to any kind of external audience or do any kind of more extensive analysis with it. And so you might want to just come in here and say, okay, I just want to get the data that I have. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to grab that CSV file that I exported from our case management system. I'm going to find, there we go. And I'm going to pull it straight into Power BI. Now, because this is a very, very simple report and it's in CSV format, I shouldn't have to do a ton of additional work to get this into kind of a recognizable format. So you can see we've got, date open, date close, problem code, etc. So I'm just going to load that without doing any more. One of the things that you do want to do with Power BI data when you're doing mapping is to tell Power BI that it is map data, so that tell it, this is a location field versus this is not a location field. And so the way that you would do that once your data loads, again, this is a very small set, so it shouldn't take long to do, is I'm going to come over here to the table view. So right now I'm in the kind of visualizations view, which is where you're going to want to be, when you're putting your visualizations together. But when you're actually editing the data or kind of looking at the data, you're going to come over to table view. And I'm going to pick the fields that I want to edit or to kind of mark as being geographic data. So I can come here and say the zip code is the data category of postal code. Latitude is latitude. longitude is longitude, state is state, etc., etc. So I'm not going to do all of these, but you kind of get the point. And so then there are two tools that are really powerful kind of out of the box for Legal Server. The one that they're really building out, or not for Legal Server, for Power BI, the one that Microsoft is really kind of pushing is Azure Maps. And you'll notice if you enable this for your organization that you've got this disclaimer, meaning that Microsoft is using a third party, TomTom, to do a lot of the analyzation for this. For me, that means I am not going to put individual client locations into this. I'm not going to use the latitude and longitude of individual client stuff, especially if I'm not going to publish that online. But your mileage may vary. If I'm going to use that purely locally, the latitude and longitude don't actually get published out unless you're using some of the more advanced tools. But you do really want to be, again, cognizant of what data is going where. You also have this location field. So that allows you to do things like pull in the zip code without using latitude and longitude to make a map. So I can come in and say zip code goes into location, and then it's going to try and make a map for me. Now, by default, they're going to make points, but that doesn't really make sense. Zip codes are not points. So I can come over here to the format and say, I don't want bubbles. I want this to be a filled map or a choropleth. And then it's going to give me, again, kind of similar to what Travis was showing, those kind of polygons, those boundaries of the various zip codes that are being shown there. And I can also say, okay, what color do I want those to be? What is the legend for that, or what is a legend for that? I'm going to say percentage of poverty maybe is how I want to color those. And I'm going to say I want, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I want that to be the legend. And I want that to be, that's fine. I didn't tell it that was in, there we go. So I've just got those individual numbers, and that's kind of weird. You can also, this is one of the things that I don't like about this, is that it's not intuitive where to put the kind of colors. So if I want to make this an actual choropleth, I would come over here and I would say, okay, how do I want to make the colors? I would change this to say, okay, I don't want to make this based on the zip code. I want to make this based on the percentage of poverty and make it the average. There we go. And so then we get something looking more like a kind of choropleth with the kind of grading that you would expect. Again, you can use those points. So if you were to, again, these are not client things, so I'm not so worried about it. If you did want to use those points, you can use the latitude and longitude that you have to go ahead and put those in there. And in that case, you do actually want a point. Okay, let me take that off. Summarize, don't summarize. And I want this to be a bubble layer. So now we have points, right, where those actual individual things are. We've got the kind of color shading there, but we can also go ahead and say we want the size of those points to be based on the percentage of poverty. So then we've got some kind of, oh, not the sum, let's make it the average again. So then we've got some kind of different sizing going on, which again can kind of show you what's going on. The other tool that you can use, and you can use this for free, or you can use this with an ArcGIS account, is the ArcGIS map. And so if I go ahead and click on that ArcGIS kind of logo there, it's going to pull up something very similar, but with a lot more features. So you can see that I was logged in here, but I'm actually going to continue. I'm going to show you what you can do without an account. Very similarly, you can drag in, let's go ahead and do the zip code again, drag that into location. And that's going to pull up a choropleth for you. Now, ArcGIS is smarter than Azure Maps is right now. And so it's going to automatically know this zip code is a polygon, it's not a point. And so that's going to pull up for me into that kind of shape that you expect. You can also see it's a little bit more fancy kind of map. And so, oh, there we go. You've got kind of the shapes there. Again, you've got an actual color field, so it's a little bit easier to get that kind of field in there that you want, that percentage of poverty, to show the kind of example that you might want. Again, this is really an example of how quickly you can get something up and running to be able to start to work with your data that you might already have from Legal Server. If you do not have the GIS tools in Legal Server, you are not stuck. Again, like I've just been doing, you can use things like zip code as an approximation for address, or for location rather. You can use address, but again, that's going to send it out to a third party to get that location data. So depending on how sensitive that is, you may or may not want to do that. If you want to choose which third party is doing that kind of geocoding for you, one of the places that I recommend is actually the census. The census has a geocoder for you that you can upload address data. They've got a template file that you can use. Upload that data, it'll download with the latitude and longitude, and that will allow you to, again, get those kind of very specific point-based maps if you want to do specific mapping that way. Another thing that is really cool with ArcGIS is you've got a lot of layers that you can pull from even without ArcGIS subscription. So you can come in here and you want to say, I want to look at demographics. I want to look at median age. I want to look at home value, disposable income. I want to look at the ArcGIS library. I want to look online and see, all this different stuff that's there, and you can pull that into your maps and use it. So a lot of stuff that you can do, but I'm going to pause there because I want to really hand it over to the experts. We've got speaking of whom, we've got a guest speaker, because I don't actually know if there's a limit to the amount of data you can geocode. I think it's last I remember it was about 100 megabytes. I think it's listed on the website itself. But yeah, go ahead. I want to welcome Kazim. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and where you're from?
I'm Kazim Anifwoshi. I'm the GIS data specialist at Midshore Council on Family Violence. So we're a comprehensive domestic violence agency located on like the eastern shore part of Maryland, so kind of across the Bray Bridge, excuse me. So I guess one of the challenges that we've always faced is like finding resources, finding housing for our clients. Like we are definitely a more remote part of Maryland. So one of the things that we kind of decided to start was start mapping some of this stuff, using ArcGIS and using, GIS technology. So it kind of started just focusing on our 5 service areas. And then, since a lot of the data we were able to grab was of the entire state or the entire nation, from sites like Highfeld, Homeland Security information like Level Data, or like MDI Map. Both of those are like open access kind of data from the state and the Fed. So we decided at that point, like we have the data, we were literally doing more work to clip the data to our 5 service areas. We decided to just kind of open things up and include all 24 jurisdictions. So we have a hub, and currently right now we have about 27 other organizations, specifically DV organizations using our services. So again, we kind of just map out, housing. So for that, we scrape, Zillow, realtorapartments.com, put all those housing listings on one site that's easy for the client and staff to be able to like search. We also have affordable housing resources, DV locations. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show you some of the stuff that we've been working on here. So this first map that we're going to look at is can you guys see? All right, perfect. So
Yes.
This is the housing map. So this pulls together, we were able to create a web scraper that goes in, pulls all the data from realtorapartments.com, Zillow.com. So like more of those traditional rental listing sites. And then again, like the name of the game here is just, so like a lot of times, at least for us, we have someone that's like a housing coordinator that specifically works with the client, asking them specific questions and like trying to find out, okay, like, is this a location that's like that works for you and your family when you are trying to like make that transition from like crisis to self-sufficiency? So essentially how this kind of works is, if you're specifically looking for housing within Anne Arundel, Baltimore County, Baltimore City, person can go in and add those filters here at the top. And then obviously the list and what's shown on the map will change based off those filters. Say that our client has a max rent of $1,500. We can go ahead and enter that information. And then again, things filter out based off of what you're including there. And let's say that we need at least 2 bedrooms. So these are a list of all the things, all the listings within those 3 counties that fit that those specific parameters. And so there's a couple of ways to see some of the data. So you can either, kind of scroll the list and click directly on the list. It'll zoom you into that selection. This was a bad example here. Probably did not have a listing image, but what it will do is will pop up the first listing image from the site. In this case, it's Realtor. Kind of give you a little bit more information, like a quick glance of information from that listing, the actual overview, and then a direct link to the website as well. This one looks like it's off market. We have to do an update today. But essentially, like, the name of the game here is putting everything in one place, making it a lot easier to search for both clients and for our case managers, people that are helping the clients, with a lot of these moves. So let's just say that this 1125 Harlem Ave was a listing that we thought potentially could work for our clients. But we have to make sure that there's a school within walking distance of that house, because let's say our client's car broke down. So we can go over to this resource dashboard. And then in this resource dashboard, we might take a little bit to load. So there's about like 30 different data sets within this. We have them broken up into 3 different categories. So we have family and health services, so WIC resources, food resources, healthcare, medical offices, so on and so forth, pet care and services like mobile data and voice coverage maps. We also have emergency services and then some employment services. But typically how case managers, how clients typically would use this is they would, if they're using it in conjunction with the housing map, they would grab the housing map, or they'd grab the address from that housing map, move over to the resource, and then use this near me tool. Just copy and paste this address, and it'll draw a radius defaulting at 5 miles and then showing all of those different resources that are within that 5-mile radius. And then, so since we're in Baltimore, we won't need 5 miles. Let's move it down to 2. And then, so just kind of puts together all the different resources that are within right now a 2-mile radius of that house that we just got from that housing dashboard. So it doesn't need to just be exact addresses, which is the cool things. Like if you work in like Easton or something, or your child goes to school in like near the Columbia Mall, you can put in an area of interest and it will still kind of give you those same results. So it doesn't need to be an exact address. It can be an approximate, like a city, something like that. But kind of looking at this, if you specifically wanted to see pharmacies, we know that there's 31 pharmacies within a 2-mile radius of that house. Clicking on pharmacies will just isolate that piece within the map itself and then give you some of the specific locations within the map. And then clicking on any of these again further will kind of just give you some more information about it. And then again, like, we try to provide as much information as possible. So like website information. This looks okay. Yes, that's better as a fair. So like website information, like hours of operation, is kind of giving everyone the most amount of information possible to kind of minimize time spent having to do the whole Google loop that I'm sure that everyone is kind of used to, where it's like, okay, like I need this location near me, and like the first 3 are like sponsored, targeted ads kind of thing. So just kind of really simplifying it and making it easy to use for people that may not be the most technologically, savvy. And we have had a lot of good results. But kind of moving on. So this is our victim services dashboard. This is kind of our main offering. And then again, so we have housing dashboard, the affordable housing dashboard, which pulls in affordable, like Section 8 listings from mdhousingsearch.org. So that's like Section 8 income restricted listings. Filters kind of work the same way as that housing map. Again, we do have that resource that I showed you. So next we have the DV location map. This was actually a recommendation from one of our case managers at Midshore. So what we do is we have hotline on call. So because we're a domestic violence agency, we have to make sure that the hotline number is covered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that means like you know, if someone calls at 3 a.m., someone has to pick up the phone and be able to like help them. So, but sometimes like our service area is only 5 counties in the Eastern Shore. So our service areas are Caroline, Dorchester, Kent, Queen Anne, and Talbot County. But sometimes, you know, you might get a call from Kent County, Delaware, someone that, you know, search for domestic violence resources in Kent County, and, you know, maybe we popped up even though they're in Delaware. So how we can use this is we can open up this filter. We can, you know, specify the state, specify the county. It'll just kind of zoom you into that selection and then give you a couple of locations that are able to help that person based off of their location. So again, office number, hotline number, their area served, address, and then a direct link to the website as well. Oh, that's okay. I was about to say that's weird. Yeah, so and then that's that part. And then we have the Maryland Sex Offender Registry, which uses the correction data from the state of Maryland, and then we map all of the registered sex offenders within the state of Maryland. So again, like our thinking when creating this is helping clients make the most informed decision. So if they know that they have someone in their head that they want to try to stay away from, or they want to know like where is this person, you know, located, they can search one of two ways. They can either use that near me tool, similar to what we use in that resource map, putting in that address, and then it'll again draw a radius, give you all the people within what's defaults as a 5-mile radius, or you can search by like zip code or approximate name. So like if you know, or if you have an idea of someone that you want to like stay away from, let's just put in Dave. And so you can put in an approximate or an exact name. It's weird. Guess there's no Daves. That's weird. Oh, probably David. Probably be the full name. Yeah. So it just kind of and then you can search specifically by zip code. So you can kind of combine a lot of these different search parameters. And then again, looking at any of the data, it just kind of gives a photo, gives information, and then a direct link to the site and the corrections as well. So that's kind of like the main offering that we have. We are actually planning on adding our newest addition, which is the employment dashboard. So this kind of works the same way, or kind of works very similar to how the housing dashboard does. So we scrape all the listings, or all listings that are posted within a 2-week period from Indeed. And then, you know, we provide this to our clients. So, you know, if they are looking for a new job or something, they can go in, specifically specify the county, zip code, part-time, full-time, like remote, hybrid, in office, specifically select their employer, and they can search the listings that way. So let's say that we're specifically looking for a listing in Anne Arundel County. And then again, like as you're changing the actual filters, the lists and the counts will change based off of the selections that you have. So we know that there were 900 listings in the full state of Maryland that from that 2-week period. And then now we know there's 114 in Anne Arundel County. And then this list here reflects all those, as well as this thing here. And then this is just like the employment card that just kind of gives you some more information. So you can either click on these, you can look at it here, or click directly on the map. So we have, you know, job title, employer, the location, salary, and then again, a direct link to that site. So like the name of the game here is just kind of making it as easy as possible for people to go in and kind of search for the things that we need. And one of the things that we have actually done at Midshore is we ended up purchasing a bunch of Coursera, like the training licenses. So now we're like literally like a one-stop shop. So like if, you know, someone wants to become a phlebotomist or something, and they want to start getting, you know, taking the courses, taking the classes that kind of help them reach that goal of like working as like a nurse or something like that, we can line them up. We can like find the job. We have someone that will like help them with the resume and stuff. And then we can recommend them courses, give them a license so they can start, you know, doing that development, doing that stuff that will kind of get them to that job. Yeah. So this is all the victim services stuff. Some of the new stuff we've been working on with Access to Justice in the Maryland State Bar is our Access to Justice resource map. And I know I'm going super, super fast. I have a lot to show. Are there any questions really quick before before I pop back.
We've got a couple. One of them was about the tool that you're using for this dashboard. It looks like this is a ArcGIS.
Yep. Yeah. So everything is built out through ArcGIS. Combination of we reuse all the tools. So the actual application that we were looking at here, it's a combination of ArcGIS Enterprise, or sorry, ArcGIS Experience Builder, dashboards, and web maps. So the whole entire project is tied together through Experience Builder. Experience Builder is like ArcGIS that's like their new application builder kind of thing. Still, I personally think there's still a little bit of bugs, things that I personally like better in the web app builder. But yeah, but it's one of those things that they are developing it. I know that they're stopping support on the web app builder, which is this is an example of like a web app builder map. So it's a little bit more simple and stuff than you can do with like with Experience Builder or with like dashboards, but it's very specific in what it can do. So like the main thing that we want with these is that near me tool, and the near me tool does work at Experience Builder, but it's just not as fleshed out. And I'll be able to kind of show you that a little bit when we go through the Access to Justice resource map. Yeah, but it's all Esri stuff, all ArcGIS products that kind of put all this stuff together. And then we have a community organization site. So our actual website itself is built out through a community organization hub. So that allows us to kind of go in, onboard people, and then put them in groups that kind of limits the amount of access they can get based off like the kind of group that they're in. So all the people that have already been onboarded, you know what? I can kind of show an example. So if you're signed in, you're gonna see all the content. You're gonna see all the content. So it's, you're fully able to use stuff, even like the events page here at the bottom. But if you're not signed in, you're not gonna see all the content. Like you're not gonna be able to see the events and the lunch and learn sessions. If you go over to like the different portal pages, you'll be able to see the actual content, what's in it, but you won't be able to use like, see the instruction pages or anything like that. So that's the cool thing about the community organization page. It kind of really lets you tailor who can see what based off the group that you set their permissions to. Yeah.
The second question was around the data sources that you're kind of pulling in, and just kind of repeating kind of where those data points are coming from.
Yeah. So I can go ahead and go to our resource layer. All right, so a lot of the data that we get is from MDI map. So MDI map is like state of Maryland's like open source GIS and data catalog. So, that's where we'll get things like, pet care and services, veterinary offices, things like that, grantee, primary care. And then another major place that we get stuff from is Highfeld. So it's essentially the same thing as MDI map, except it's the whole nation. So it's not just looking at the state of Maryland, it's kind of looking at the entire nation. Then we clip those to the state of Maryland and then work from there. And then another main place we get our data from is we've developed these like HTML web scrapers, so we can kind of go in, emulate being a person, and that's how we grab a lot of the real estate listings, things like that.
So most of this is stuff that you're maintaining the scraper, but you're not necessarily maintaining the data set itself. You're referencing an external one.
Exactly. So like, again, like the old, and we were able to set up a pro task within ArcGIS Pro to kind of automate that process. So now all we really have to do is scrape it, and then we literally just throw it into ArcGIS Pro. The pro task kind of cleans it up, sets all the boundaries, does the spatial joining and stuff, and then from that we just append it to the data that was there before. So as the data gets updated, it just kind of gets replaced by the newest version, and then everything is already configured and good to go, which was definitely the way that we used to do it was not fun. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, but yeah, any other questions really quick? All right, keep on moving forward here. So this is the Access to Justice portal. This is fully built out using Experience Builder. So essentially what this is it's mapping different justice resources, specifically looking at like civil justice, so like pro bono attorneys, things like that. And so this is like our version 1 of our project with them. So say that you're specifically looking for help centers or something. So we can go in, turn on help centers. Whoops. Let's turn on both of these there. And then we can use this boundary filter, say that we're specifically want to look for this in Howard County. So we can go, select Howard, turn that on. And then again, kind of zooms you in directly, kind of gives you some information here. So if we click on this point, we know that this is, the Family Help Center, Howard County, a law assistance. We have the address, name, hours of operation, direct link to the website. And so again, like this is kind of version 1. And then eventually what we would like to do is kind of do a little bit more analysis. So this is part of the project that isn't exactly live yet. We're still, whoa. Oh, I think it's okay. Sorry. There it goes. So what this is looking at different judicial data as well as some demographic data. And the thinking here is like being able to understand what are like the breakdowns at the census tract level, county level, zip code level of the areas, and like what are like how are like the allocation of resources, like are there high evictions here because there are no services to combat the the evictions, or is it just like people aren't using it? So like what needs to happen on their end to make sure that that number is going down? So just kind of like running a little bit of that analysis. And this is like very, very crude, I am not gonna lie. We just really started this, but like say that you specifically wanted to look at evictions in whoops. Why is this being funny? I don't think I'm ready to show this yet, actually. Yeah, so this is one thing that we really just started this like last week, but again, we specifically have like a bunch of different data sets from judicial, from the court's website, and then we have that overlaid with a bunch of different like demographic factors and things like that. So again, we're going to try to run some analysis and kind of get a better understanding of like what's really going on in our communities. But that is all I have. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for sharing. It's super cool, and I'm very jealous of all of this. Not least of which is the data you're getting from your judicial folks, but super cool to see what you're doing and how it's empowering folks to really serve your communities.
So for the hardware system specs, we pretty much run everything through AGOL. So it's literally just like Esri hosts everything in their cloud, like cloud space, I guess. So it's not I have just like a regular MacBook Pro. I don't have anything like super crazy. So a lot of the heavy lifting is done within like Esri's infrastructure on the back end.
Yeah, I use a MacBook Pro for geospatial stuff. And I do most stuff locally. Like I use a lot of command line tools for like some of the more intense work. And I've only really ever had to wait more than a couple seconds for something to run. A lot of the like tools are like really well optimized. If you're like using libraries, like they'll get stuff done very, very easily. Yeah, I do have at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. That is what I have right now.
I definitely do
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So going back, there were a few questions earlier. I just want to make sure that those got answered. And maybe you did, and I just didn't understand the language. So Christian asked, is there a way to use GIS data to automatically translate an address to anonymized geocode within legal servers reporting tools?
Is there a way to automatically translate an address to
I mean, it's not. I mean, I don't consider latitude longitude to be anonymized. They can be translated right back into an address, which is very much can be tied to a person. If you have a GIS module, it can translate to latitude longitude for you. It does use either the census geocoder or the USPS geocoder, and so you're having that level of exposure regardless of what tool you use to do that geocoding. But again, you have the option of using that census geocoder, which I think for me is the next best thing, or kind of QGIS can do it locally. I've used some plugins to do that as well, and there's also, again, third-party systems. Thanks, Christian.
If you're concerned about confidentiality and like privacy, one of the things that you can do is if you're working with, like, if it's a single point, there's not a lot to be done. But anytime I'm working with like stuff about like a neighborhood, I won't do individual houses. I will do census blocks or census tracts, or sometimes we do stuff by zip code, although that's not always a great way to do it because zip codes have different populations in them and they're weird. But I will do, Philadelphia has 10 city council districts. And so we do sometimes do stuff by district because we're trying to make a point to a certain council person.
I've also seen people do things like adding some random noise to latitude and longitude so that the latitude and longitude is not exact, but it's like close enough for the point that you're trying to make. I'm curious what your thoughts are about that. If that seems like a good approach.
I mean, I've definitely seen folks do like averaging of them, if you're, depending on the data set size and what you're using them for. But for most of our purposes, if we're using client data, I will just go ahead and aggregate to a boundary layer, like census tract, or zip code. But yeah, there are tools in QGIS again to do like random, like that kind of noisiness of saying like put it within a certain certain range of a specific latitude longitude that you give it, but you don't know after it does its analysis like where within that range it is. So
I have a question for Kazim, which is, you mentioned that you have a lot of scraped data for things like that, like housing map, which is great. I love a tool like that. Have you run into issues with like terms of service or like them like asking you to stop or anything like that? Which I bring up specifically for everyone else. I bring up specifically because a lot of websites do not like it when you scrape this data, especially the ones who are like, we're providing a service.
Yeah, so Zillow in particular, they are. So yeah, so we've applied for their API, and so like that is like, all right, I don't know if we're doing this the right way exactly, but we applied for their API. We still are kind of waiting on that, but that's kind of like, because of that, we are like, okay, like we're still in the process of like applying it. So like we're kind of just running at it as it is. We have tried to reach out to them and they haven't really got back to us. They haven't said anything to us, and I feel like we're not like stealing their data. We're linking everyone back directly to their sites. So it's one of those things that I feel like I'm treating it as kind of like a gray area, but yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot of ask for forgiveness projects.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like we're trying to help. We're trying to help the community. So it's like, it's not like we're like taking the data and selling it or something. So
right. Yeah, I think it's tricky because like there's like multiple listing services for like buying a house and selling a house, but not typically for renting. And there's no like central thing for that.
Like if we could use the MLS data, that's what we would use. But it's not only is it not as detailed, it's like it's a lot of buying and selling. It's not as much like rentals, things like that. So we're kind of at the point where our hands are, I mean, not tied, but it's just like we want to be able to provide this information to our clients. We think it's very important, especially like where we're at, like the Eastern Shore of Maryland. It's like over like the winter, it's not very uncommon for there to be 4 new houses over like a month period or something, or like a multiple month period. So when it comes down to it, like I just want to be able to provide as much information to as many people as possible. And that's kind of like where my head's at right now. Like if they do eventually like come to us and like, all right, you guys have to stop this, then we'll come up with something different. But my only goal right now is just provide as much information to people as possible. So that's kind of just putting the blinders on and pretending like, everything's good.
I'm curious, is there a link or something? Yeah, sir.
Yeah, you can go on their site and apply for their API. The problem that we have found with that is they really limit you in the amount that you can pull a day. I think it's like 50 a day, which just isn't like we're pulling 10,000 listings twice a week kind of thing. So it's just not gonna work for us.
Awesome. Well, it is the end of the hour, so I appreciate everyone being here today. Thank you to all of our speakers. You imparted some great knowledge and information to all of the attendees. I want to encourage everyone to come back next month on the 9th. We're going to be doing, Sarah Freymiller is going to be talking about Excel mapping and Excel tips and tricks. So until then, we will have this posted to our YouTube channel shortly, and it will also be on Susan's site. And so thank you so much, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Have a good one, everyone.